The MotoGP 2026 season has already delivered an extraordinary opening chapter, but according to Aprilia Racing CEO Massimo Rivola, the true championship war is only now about to ignite. As the paddock prepares to descend upon the legendary Circuito de Jerez for the Spanish Grand Prix, Rivola believes that everything witnessed across the first 3 rounds was merely a prologue to the genuine drama that awaits in southern Spain. Aprilia arrived at the start of the 2026 campaign like a team that had been quietly sharpening its blades for years, and when the lights went out for the season opener, they unleashed something remarkable. The Knoll-based manufacturer orchestrated a stunning sweep of all 3 main race victories, a feat that sent shockwaves through the entire paddock and instantly repositioned Aprilia as the most feared force in the championship. At the center of this dominance stood Marco Bezzecchi, the young Italian rider who has transformed himself into a relentless, precise, and seemingly unstoppable racing machine. His performances across those opening rounds were not merely good. They were borderline flawless, combining raw pace with tactical intelligence and the kind of unwavering consistency that champions are made of. Yet Aprilia's strength in 2026 is not built upon a single pillar. The arrival of Jorge Martin, the former Pramac Ducati ace and reigning world champion, has injected an additional layer of firepower into the Knoll camp. Martin slotted into the Aprilia RSGP with a naturalness that surprised even the most optimistic observers, and he currently occupies second position in the overall standings. With 2 of the fastest riders in the world operating under the same garage, Aprilia has constructed what many consider the most formidable rider pairing the sport has seen in recent memory. Despite having every reason to celebrate, Rivola has consciously resisted the temptation to get swept up in the excitement. The Italian executive understands that championship campaigns are marathons, not sprints, and 3 victories at the start of a long season, while deeply encouraging, cannot be mistaken for a finished portrait of where the competition truly stands. Speaking candidly, Rivola acknowledged that making any definitive predictions about the final standings at this stage would be premature and frankly irresponsible. The season, he insists, stretches far ahead, and the variables that will shape its outcome are still revealing themselves one race weekend at a time. What Rivola is willing to celebrate, however, is the internal transformation that Aprilia has undergone as an organization. The team has grown rapidly not only in terms of pure technical performance, but also in the depth and quality of its personnel structure. That organizational evolution, he believes, is just as important as any aerodynamic upgrade or engine development, because a well-functioning team is capable of solving problems faster and making smarter decisions under pressure. While Martin's results have been consistently strong, Rivola does not believe the Spaniard has yet reached anywhere near his ceiling. The Aprilia boss points to Martin's physical condition as the primary limiting factor at this stage of the season. Martin is still working his way back toward complete fitness, and Rivola believes that gap between his current state and his absolute best is still meaningful enough to affect race outcomes. More specifically, Rivola has noticed a tendency in Martin to overthink during critical phases of a race, rather than surrendering to instinct and allowing his natural talent to take over. At the very top level of motorcycle racing, overthinking is often more costly than any mechanical disadvantage. The best lap times come when a rider enters a flow state, when body and machine communicate without conscious interference. Martin, according to his team boss, has not yet found that fluid rhythm on a consistent basis. However, this assessment is framed not as criticism, but as cause for optimism. If Martin is already sitting second in the championship while operating at something less than his maximum potential, the implications for when he finally does unlock that full capability are genuinely exciting. Rivola also highlights a structural advantage that Martin enjoys within the team: the ability to study and learn from Bezzecchi's data. With his teammate currently performing at perhaps the highest individual level in the entire field, Martin has an extraordinary reference point to benchmark himself against. Every setup decision, every tire strategy, every corner entry and exit, all of it is visible through shared data, allowing Martin to accelerate his own development in ways that riders without such a teammate simply cannot access. There is also the matter of psychological pressure. Martin has already proven himself as a Grand Prix winner on multiple occasions. He carries the confidence of a man who knows he can reach the top step of the podium, which means he does not need to force results or take reckless gambles to establish his credentials. That freedom from desperation, Rivola argues, is a significant psychological asset. Bezzecchi, by contrast, carries the weight of expectation that comes with being the championship leader, a burden that can quietly erode decision-making and introduce tension into moments that demand absolute clarity. Martin can afford to be patient and calculated, trusting that his moment will come. However, the competitive landscape of MotoGP 2026 extends well beyond the orange garages of Aprilia. Rivola himself has been clear-eyed enough to acknowledge that the rider who may pose the greatest threat going forward is neither of his own men. It is Marc Marquez, the 8-time world champion currently riding for the Ducati Lenovo team. Marquez had an opening to the season that could generously be described as turbulent. Crashes, penalties, mechanical misfortune, and the lingering effects of a shoulder injury sustained at the Pertamina Mandalika International Street Circuit the previous October combined to leave him sitting fifth in the championship standings, 36 points adrift of Bezzecchi at the top. On paper, it looks like the story of a champion struggling to recapture former glory. But those who follow the data closely know that appearances can be dangerously misleading when it comes to Marquez. Rivola's verdict is unambiguous. Jerez is where Marquez will announce himself as a genuine title contender. The circuit in southern Spain holds a unique place in the Marquez mythology. Over the course of his career, he has built an extraordinary record there, and despite the painful memories attached to that particular venue, most notably the catastrophic crash in 2020 that shattered his arm and effectively derailed multiple seasons, Marquez has always returned to Jerez with a heightened sense of purpose. Racing in front of the passionate and notoriously loud Spanish crowd adds an emotional dimension to his performance that is difficult to quantify but impossible to ignore. Marquez himself has spoken openly about his eagerness to return to action after a 3-week break between the American and Spanish rounds. He used that period deliberately and methodically, focusing his energy on physical recovery and race preparation, with particular attention paid to the specific demands that Jerez will place upon his body. The 4.4-kilometer circuit is known for its technical complexity, its punishing sequences of slow and medium-speed corners, and the physical toll it extracts from riders who commit fully to its challenges. For a man still managing a shoulder that is not yet at full strength, Jerez represents both an opportunity and a test of resilience. He was remarkably transparent about the difficulties he has been navigating. Marquez acknowledged that the problem is not simply one of motorcycle performance, but rather his own ability to control the Ducati Stlh in the early stages of a race, when tire grip is at its maximum, and the machine is at its most aggressive and reactive. During those opening laps, Marquez has found himself unable to ride in the natural, instinctive manner that defines his best performances. He described feeling as though he was operating slightly outside his comfort zone, managing the motorcycle rather than truly commanding it. That admission might sound concerning, but Marquez paired it with something equally revealing, a commitment to address the weakness directly during the break. He spoke specifically about practicing race starts and working on the physical and mental elements that would allow him to be competitive from the very first lap at Jerez, rather than needing to wait for the tires to wear and the bike to settle before finding his rhythm. When Marquez identifies a specific problem and dedicates himself to solving it, the rest of the field has historically had reason to be concerned. For those who look beyond the final race classification at the American Grand Prix, Marquez's underlying pace told a story that the championship standings had been obscuring. An analysis of the final 10 laps of that race revealed that his lap time average was genuinely competitive with the two Aprilia riders who had been dominating the season. Bezzecchi completed those 10 laps in 20 minutes and 26.308 seconds. Martin was marginally quicker at 20 minutes and 26.17 seconds. Marquez, meanwhile, posted 20 minutes and 27.181 seconds, a gap of less than 1 second to the faster of his two main rivals. What makes that figure even more striking is the context in which it was achieved. Unlike Bezzecchi and Martin, who were circulating in relatively clear air and could take their preferred lines through every corner, Marquez was threading his way through a group of riders, overtaking multiple competitors and repeatedly sacrificing the optimal racing line to complete those passes. During those same 10 laps, he worked his way from 9th position to 4th, executing a series of aggressive and committed moves that ate into his time and energy. Strip away the time lost to a long lap penalty he served earlier in the race, a punishment that cost him approximately 3 seconds, and the arithmetic suggests he would have been in contention for a podium position. That is the real portrait of where Marc Marquez stands in 2026. Not a fading champion clinging to past glories, but a rider of enormous capability operating under a specific set of physical constraints that are gradually being addressed, in a machine of genuine championship quality, with the motivation and experience of someone who has been here before and knows exactly what it takes to come back. While much of the attention naturally gravitates toward the Aprilia duo and Marquez, Rivola has also extended acknowledgement to the other forces capable of disrupting the championship picture. Pedro Acosta, the young KTM rider who has already established himself as one of the most naturally gifted talents the sport has produced in years, receives particular praise from the Aprilia boss. Acosta's ability to extract performance from his machinery in ways that seem to transcend conventional logic has impressed everyone in the paddock, and his presence in the championship mix is a reminder that the 2026 title fight will not be settled by just 2 or 3 riders. Ducati, meanwhile, remains a formidable collective presence even if Marquez has not yet maximized the potential of their equipment. The Italian manufacturer demonstrated at the sprint races in recent rounds that their machinery retains the fundamental qualities necessary to win, claiming first and second in those shorter events, and reminding everyone that their strength is neither exhausted nor diminished. With Marquez returning to a circuit he loves and with a midweek test scheduled for the Monday following the Jerez race weekend, during which Ducati is expected to introduce a series of significant technical updates, the timing could not be more favorable for the Lenovo squad to reset their season.